What is up, guys? Frosty Austy 0232 here for another Frosty Features. Upcoming to Marvel Strike Force, to the Bionic Avengers team, we have the one, the only, not Deathlok, right? So in Marvel Strike Force, we're looking at Luther Manning as Deathlok. There are multiple characters as Deathlok, and we will go into that in a second. But for those of you who have not been here for Frosty Features, I'm going to tell you a little bit what we're doing, right? This is a comic book background. This is canon information. This is the story of the character that is coming to Marvel Strike Force. Deathlok is extremely confusing. Nothing is really one way with this character, especially not especially Luther Manning, including Luther Manning. You'll see what I'm talking about as we move forward, but it's a little bit crazy. But just bear with me, and if I mess something up or if something's just wicked crazy, let me know in the comments what you think. But right now, we're gonna dive in to Luther Manning, Deathlok. Deathlok, name's Luther Manning. Already gave that shit away. All right, first appearance was in Astonishing Tales number 25, 1974. It's funny. I just want to throw out there, a lot of these newer characters, so we're looking at Bionic Avengers. We're looking at, oh goodness. What's this other one coming out? The Gamma, our Gamma team coming out. And our Hero Asgardian situation. All of these characters either come from the 70s or the 20 teens. Which is kind of weird. But anyway, so Deathlok, another character from the 70s, 1974. So Deathlok, there's going to be a lot of things, right? So Deathlok appears in different places. There's more than one Deathlok. So you might find something different online, but Luther Manning's Deathlok first shows up in Astonishing Tales number 25 in 1974. Write that shit down. Powers/abilities. Superhuman / computer brain. So typically I don't point out, when it comes to powers and abilities of Frosty Austy or Frosty Features, I don't usually go into detail about super strength, super speed, etc. because that is a standard power set, right? Like every single if you have superpowers in the first place, you have super strength, you have super speed almost every time, right? So I don't typically go too deep into it. There are exceptions, of course, but I don't typically go into it, right? So in this case, Deathlok is made to be the anti-Captain America. So Deathlok essentially has all of the powers of Captain America, which is he is superhuman, the definition of superhuman, right? So he's human plus. He's stronger than regular. You're not going to see him flying and beaming people to death. He is a cybernetic person who has super strength, who has super speed, but he's not like running faster than the speed of light or whatever. He's just whatever the human peak is. Deathlok is the next step. Same with Captain America. So, and also, as I said, Deathlok is made to be the anti-Captain America. 100% true. Yeah, we'll talk about that moving forward. Aliases, the Demolisher. He does refer to himself as the Demolisher a few times, but almost always he's known as Deathlok. Deathlok is coined because this is, in Luther Manning's case, he dies in a training accident, and his body is taken by this thing called Project Red, and they essentially stick his body into this cybernetic machine. They load him up, they use his organs as part of the machine, and they control him with his brain. So also the computer brain also makes him super smart. I forgot to say that. So he is almost entirely controlled, but as it goes on, and because comics and story or whatever, he does kind of regain his own consciousness. He regains his sentience from this sort of computer control. So he veers between villain and hero, as do other Deathloks, because of this exact reason. Affiliations. Project Alpha Mech. So Project Alpha Mech is a super soldier attempt using cybernetics to upgrade people. That's what you're looking at here. He was a part of the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, the U.S. Army, and the Heralds. And we'll talk about the Heralds a little bit more moving forward, but essentially it is a interdimensional team that is put together to fight different threats. So sort of like in Avengers, It's actually very similar to the Web Warriors, where it's different Spidey people from different dimensions that work together. This is just random. It's essentially Avengers of different dimensions that work together. That would be the Heralds. Background, Detroiter, just like RoboCop. If he sounds like RoboCop, he is RoboCop. And he is not from Earth 616. So Frosty Features typically heavily centers on Earth 616. That is the main continuity, that is the main storyline, the Nexus universe, if you will, of Marvel Comics. Deathlock, for all intents and purposes, operates in multi-dimensions. He is from 7484. It crosses over to the 616 at a point. There is a 616 Luther Manning, but he's only involved in one storyline. And it's very short-lived, and he doesn't make it. Spoiler alert, he doesn't make it through. So, for the first time in Frosty Features, we will not be focusing on the 616 as much as we are focusing on the 7484. Who died? He did. As I said, he died in a training accident. Captain America was actually there. So he died in a training accident in Vietnam, and he gets shot, he dies, and next thing he knows, he wakes up. He is mostly robot, and Marvel did do it, but there's a Dr. Riker has made this, and he essentially is trying to make a controllable Captain America that they can supplement their armies with. Essentially, not a test tube Captain America, but a totally controllable whatever. So whereas Captain America sort of symbolizes freedom, Deathlock sort of symbolizes that being controlled by another being, right? Also, the big thing, so Deathlock is a cybernetic upgrade. I think that might be the next thing. An upgrade, not a person. It is the next thing. So an upgrade, not a person. Deathlock is not a single person. This is part of the reason why it's so complicated, right? So Deathlock is a cybernetic upgrade. It is this, if you see a Deathlock, they've got a human eye and they've got a red eye, and that's really the easiest way to tell. A lot of the men dress similar, but there's also women, and there's also essentially fully robotic Deathlocks, but ultimately it is a cybernetic upgrade. It is not a person. There are multiple Deathlocks. Most notably, there is obviously Luther Manning, who we've got coming to Marvel Strike Force. There was Michael Collins, who is the other. If you read about a Deathlock, you're either probably going to be reading about Luther Manning or Michael Collins. There is also a John Kelly Deathlock, and there are a few more. But the big ones being Luther Manning and Michael Collins. And today we're going to talk about Luther Manning, of course, but we're also going to talk about Michael Collins because it's hard to talk about one and not the other. See why in a bit. But yes, so Deathlock is a name that can be had by pretty much anyone because, and they are referred to Deathlock because essentially it's a deceased body being operated by mechanics or with like robotics or whatever. And those robotics do not stop the body from decaying. So when you look at Deathlock comics and stuff, the bodies that are Deathlock are in various states of decay, and it's because as they are hooked up to this machine, the machine does not stop their body from decaying. So that's why it's called Deathlock, is because the body is stuck in a death-like state. So it is an upgrade, not a person. Earth 7484, what is it, right? So Earth, like I said, I accidentally messed up. The Earth 616, as I said, that is the main Marvel continuity. That is the main storyline. Everything branches off of the 616. So Earth 7484. In 1983, I believe, there's an operation called Operation Purge, and it is an attempt by the U.S. government to kill all superheroes. And in Earth 616, this attempt is foiled, right? And it doesn't obviously happen because we wouldn't have superheroes. In Earth 7484, however, it does work. That is the difference. It is Marvel or it is 100% in line with the 616 in the event that all of the superheroes are killed. The Deathlock program, Operation Purge, which is put up by Project Alpha Mech, it's carried on by a company called Roxxon. And they succeed. So all the superheroes are killed, and these Deathlocks are what are used to sort of like patrol and keep people in line. So yeah, it's a one of those things where it's a darker alternate timeline. All right, relationships. Janice Manning is his ex-wife. Richard Manning is his son. So there's a lot of parallels to RoboCop here. So it's his ex-wife because he's dead, but it stays his son even though she gets remarried to a friend of his, as happens in all comics and such. So Time Stream and the 616. We're gonna go into notable events here. So Time Stream is a character in Marvel continuity, and what he does is he finds and he convinces the 616 Deathlock that essentially he needs to attack these people, and he's trying to save this sort of universe. That's the 616 Luther Manning, and then the 7484 Luther. This is what I'm talking about, where it gets really complicated. The 7484 Luther Manning ends up, so he swaps dimensions. Like I said, he ends up working with the Heralds. Talk about them in just a second. But so he's a dimension hopper, and so he's going back and forth, and he finds out Time Stream is manipulating his 616 counterpart. And so he hops dimensions to kind of try to aid himself, more or less, or really just to stop Time Stream. And to do so, he ends up teaming up with himself and Michael Collins, Deathlock, to kind of try to take out Time Stream. And so in this series, it's Deathlock, and there's other bits. But ultimately, the Deathlocks fight each other. And when it's kind of finally revealed that he's been killing a bunch of innocent people, Luther Manning of the 616, he gets really depressed and he ends up shooting himself. So the 616, as I said earlier, the 616 continuity, Luther Manning, he only lives a very short period of time because he is involved in this, finds out he's done wrong, helps the other Deathlocks kill Time Stream, and then he kills himself. So we're actually left with the 7484 Luther Manning, who is typically the one you see in the 616 anyway. But yeah, so yeah, it's really weird. Also, just a side note, Michael Collins, the other Deathlock that I'm referring to often, I haven't really said who he is. Him and so Dr. Riker led the project that created the Deathlock. It was aided originally by Michael Collins, who kind of helped make so medical doctor Riker, robotics doctor, mechanic guy Michael Collins, and Michael Collins ends up dying. He ends up dying, and Riker ends up using his body to make the third Deathlock. There's the timeline's weird, but it's the second one, I believe, that came out in publishing. Timeline, he's the first person to become the Deathlock, but he's actually Deathlock number 3. Because comics, baby. So it's super weird to follow. But yeah, Luther Manning and Michael Collins, they're the main ones, and then we had 2 Luther Mannings in this Time Stream situation. So let's talk about the Heralds. Okay, so the Heralds. There is a character called the Watcher. He is not a Watcher like Uatu, things we're familiar with from the MCU's What If series, a Watcher, or comic books. This character I'm referring to is X-51. So the Weapon X program, they've got the they do the X, there's X-23, X-21, different kind of levels of mutant characters. There is X-51, which used to be at one point Machine Man. He ends up getting stripped of his humanity, and he ends up on the moon with Uatu. Uatu summons him, Uatu the Watcher, and he essentially is manipulating this Machine Man type situation into becoming. Uatu is blinded, so he's trying to use X-51 as his new eyes. So anyway, he becomes the Watcher, even though he's not a race of Watcher. He's sort of a human machine situation, fairly similar to Deathlock, but quite a bit different. That's a different Frosty Features if that ever comes around. But anyway, he kind of summons together the Heralds, who are, it's like Wolverine, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and I believe there's a Doctor Doom. and of course Deathlok from different universes, different dimensions to work together. So ultimately, the main thing about the Heralds is they put them together and he expects to manipulate them. He's being manipulated by Uatu. The Heralds are being manipulated by that Watcher or X-51. Ultimately, he tries to use the Watchers to, or not the Watchers, excuse me, the Heralds to kind of take down various time streams, or to stop, the idea is to stop dimension changing events, right? So, for example, that Operation Purge, going back and stopping the original Deathlok from being made, and to entice these people, X-51 had been like, oh, well, I'll give you like one wish. You can have whatever you want if you do this stuff for me. Luther Manning, of course, was to become, just return back to being human. But in the process, he ends up dying, and they end up being betrayed, and the Heralds end up taking on X-51 and take him out, and they try to return to their respective dimensions. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the main thing. As I said before, Deathlok's really hard. There's a lot of different continuities. There's a lot of different stories. Some of them don't actually work in the canon of the 7484 or the 616. So there's multi-dimensions. So when you pick up a Deathlok comic, you're really kind of shooting in the dark what storyline you're reading. So I'm sorry if this seemed a little disjointed. It was really difficult one. So let me know in the comments some of those things that I may have that may have been a little skewed. I did a lot of research on this one, and I just couldn't. It's really hard to get all the ties together, which actually makes him kind of a more interesting character. I also want to point out, I'm going to go back to this previous slide. This is what Luther Manning looks like. So typically in the depictions of Deathlok, we see Luther Manning have this American flag on his chest. And I wanted to point that out because I find this very important. Because even in all the different redesigns or whatever, Deathloks all have a similar look, but Luther Manning has the American flag on his chest. The Marvel Strike Force design does not have the American flag on his chest. They said it was Luther Manning, and I fully accept that that's their goal. I just wanted to point it out. I find it interesting that they didn't incorporate this American flag, just because the big difference between all the different Deathloks that I could find is that the way you can pull them out is they all have one attribute. Luther Manning's attribute is this American flag. Like I said, he's supposed to be the anti-Captain America. That flag really kind of cements that, and I think that's a really big part of the story that, for some reason, it seems like they've decided to leave out. Maybe when we get there, the character model might have a flag on the back or something. But I just find it really important that that flag be there, just to tell, not for my own patriotic reasons, but just to tell the story better. So anyway, let's go back to here. So that's really all I have as far as the story goes, but right now we're going to talk about power level. So Marvel Strike Force doesn't really power scale the characters, but everybody in universe does, and we're all interested, right? So we're going to talk about power level. So a multiversal power level for the features, we say a multiversal power level is somebody so strong they could end reality as we know it and as everybody else knows it in other dimensions. So you can bring all of the time stream to a halt immediately. Universal power means you could stop reality here, maybe hop a dimension or something, or go to a different timeline and then end it there. So you can't do it all at once, but maybe you can knock them out in chunks. Cosmic. Cosmic means you are a threat to planetary bodies as they are, and with a little effort, you could probably go around to a few different galaxies and or solar systems and put an end to them. Yeah. So nuclear. Nuclear on the small end, you could destroy a small city. On the big end, you could take out a planetary body. Very strong, equivalent obviously to a nuclear bomb. City level, this is the most common level for power as far as Marvel characters go. This is where you see people like, for example, people on the screen. We've got Spider-Man and Wolverine. You could see them at a city level. The idea being on the low end, you could take out a concrete wall. You could take down a building or maybe a city block with enough effort. And then we have Greg. For the sake of argument, Greg is human level. Greg is the undead Asgardian that hella spawns in Marvel Strike Force. And if I had a spatula that was sharpened by some sandpaper and a lot of effort, I could take out Greg. right? So we're just going to call him, for the sake of this argument, he is regular people level. Yeah. So, in the case of Deathlok, I rate him at a city level. Like I said, he is the parallel. He is the anti to Captain America. Now, granted, I also believe that Baron Zemo is the anti to Captain America, the sword and the shield type situation. But in this situation, he is actually made to be the shadow of Captain America. He's made to be a controlled super soldier. He has all the same powers. Captain America, he has more influence, boom, right? More influence than the power level of a city character, but at the end of the day, his physical power set is only strong enough to possibly take out a building or something like that, right? Just superhuman, human plus, nothing super extraordinary about that. Especially in context of Marvel. So that's it. That's Frosty Features Deathlok. I really appreciate y'all sticking around. Like I said, this one was a real tough one for me. Let me know what I missed in the comments, what you wish I would have brought up. Who's your favorite Deathlok? You can put that down below, or if you're excited to see him, I'd love to see it. I stream every Sunday on Twitch, starting at 8 a.m. at the link above. Please come check me out. Give me a follow. Also, be sure to share, like, and subscribe on here on YouTube. I would really appreciate it. Yeah, and we do these every time a new character comes out, so definitely swing by. But anyway, thank you so much for sticking around, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cool.